In February 1872, 26 oil refineries in Cleveland, Ohio, shut down in less than 6 weeks. They did not burn down, go bankrupt, or lose their customers. They simply vanished. 22 of those 26 refineries were bought by the same single company. Competitors who refused to sell woke up days later and sold anyway, at whatever price they were offered. The men who ran those refineries called it the Cleveland Massacre. The company doing the buying had existed for exactly 2 years. Its founder was 32 years old, and almost nobody outside Cleveland had heard of him. What he had already done to Cleveland, he intended to do to every oil market in the United States. But the strangest part is how Rockefeller still profited the day the government finally dismantled everything he built. To understand that, you have to go back to 1839 and a con man's farmhouse in upstate New York. John Davison Rockefeller was born to a father who sold fake cancer cures and disappeared for months at a time. His father, William Avery Rockefeller, once boasted, "I cheat my boys every chance I get. I want to make them sharp." John absorbed that lesson and pointed it somewhere his father never did, toward obsessive, methodical record-keeping. From age 16, Rockefeller recorded every penny he earned, spent, and donated in a small red ledger he called Ledger A. By 1859, oil had been discovered in Titusville, Pennsylvania, and Cleveland sat perfectly between the wells and the eastern markets. Rockefeller visited the Pennsylvania oil fields once, smelled the chaos, and decided refining was smarter than drilling. Drillers gambled on finding oil. Refiners took a cut of whatever was found, regardless of who found it. In 1863, he opened his first Cleveland refinery with a partner named Samuel Andrews for exactly $4,000. Within 3 years, it was the largest refinery in Cleveland. Not because of luck, but because of cost. Rockefeller built his own barrels, his own warehouses, his own delivery wagons, cutting out every middleman who charged a margin. On January 10, 1870, he incorporated Standard Oil of Ohio with $1 million in capital. Standard Oil was already the largest refiner in Cleveland, and Rockefeller was only 30 years old. But what happened next had nothing to do with efficiency and everything to do with one secret meeting. In late 1871, Rockefeller met privately with executives from 3 railroads, the New York Central, the Erie, and the Pennsylvania. Together, they formed a secret cartel they called the South Improvement Company. The deal worked like this. Standard Oil would ship enormous volumes on those railroads, guaranteeing them revenue. In return, the railroads gave Standard Oil a secret discount called a rebate that no competitor received. Standard Oil paid $1.06 per barrel to ship oil. Competitors were charged $2.6 for the exact same route. But the scheme went further. For every barrel a competitor shipped, Rockefeller received a payment, a drawback, directly from the railroad. Rockefeller was literally being paid every time his rivals moved their own product. When independent oil producers in Pennsylvania discovered the scheme in February 1872, they ignited in fury. They stopped all oil shipments for 10 days, a full embargo, and forced the Pennsylvania state legislature to revoke the charter. The South Improvement Company was dead within weeks of anyone outside the deal learning it existed. Most people assume that is where the story ends. Rockefeller exposed, the scheme crushed, fair competition restored. It was not even close to over. Rockefeller simply negotiated new secret rebate deals directly with each railroad, one at a time, quietly and without a paper trail. He then used that freight cost advantage to go to every Cleveland refinery owner and make the same offer. "Join us at a fair price," he said, "or compete with us and face ruin." Because Standard Oil's shipping costs were so far below market rate, ruin was not a threat, it was arithmetic. In 6 weeks, he had absorbed 22 of Cleveland's 26 refineries. The Cleveland Massacre was complete. If this story makes you want to understand how monopolies are built and broken, subscribe to Wealth Signal News so you never miss the next one. By 1874, Standard Oil controlled 25% of all American oil refining capacity. By 1879, that number was 90%. Rockefeller had not just won the refining market, he had effectively become the price of kerosene in America. To hide the scale of his control, Rockefeller invented a new legal structure in 1882 that had never existed before. He called it a trust. Shareholders of 40 companies surrendered their stock to 9 trustees who controlled everything in secret. On paper, dozens of separate companies existed. In reality, one man's decisions moved them all. The trust controlled pipelines running from Pennsylvania all the way to New York Harbor, eliminating railroad dependence entirely. Standard Oil owned its own tanker fleet, its own rail cars, and a network of retail distribution outlets coast to coast. When a competitor appeared in a new city, Standard Oil would flood that local market with below-cost kerosene until the rival collapsed. Once the competitor was gone, prices returned to on whatever Standard Oil wanted them to be. This was called predatory pricing, and Rockefeller used it so systematically it became the textbook definition of the tactic. By 1882, the Standard Oil Trust was valued at roughly $70 million, the largest corporate entity in American history to that point. Rockefeller's personal wealth had made him the richest private citizen in the United States, and he was 43 years old. Remember the question from the start about who truly owned Standard Oil when the government arrived? That answer is coming. But first, the one journalist Rockefeller genuinely feared. Ida Tarbell grew up in the Pennsylvania oil fields, watching her father's barrel business destroyed by the South Improvement Company in 1872. In 1900, she began a systematic investigation of Standard Oil for McClure's magazine that would take 5 years to complete. She obtained internal Standard Oil documents, railroad ledgers, and testimony from former employees who had watched it all happen. Her 19-part series, published between 1902 and 1904, laid out the rebate system, the drawbacks, and the predatory pricing in precise documentary detail. It was the most widely read magazine series in American history up to that point, and it infuriated the public. Rockefeller never publicly responded, but a colleague recalled him saying, "Not one fact in that book is wrong." President Theodore Roosevelt, already hostile to the trust, used Tarbell's series as political ammunition to push for federal action. In 1906, the United States Department of Justice filed suit against Standard Oil under the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. The trial lasted 4 years and produced over 20,000 pages of testimony, the most complex litigation in American history to that date. The government's argument was straightforward. Standard Oil had not competed to win. It had used secret deals to make fair competition mathematically impossible. Standard Oil's defense argued that its lower prices benefited consumers, and its efficiency was simply superior management. The court was unconvinced. On May 15, 1911, the United States Supreme Court ruled unanimously that Standard Oil had violated the Sherman Antitrust Act. The court ordered Standard Oil broken into 34 separate independent companies within 6 months. The resulting companies included Standard Oil of New Jersey, Standard Oil of New York, Standard Oil of California, and Standard Oil of Indiana. Those names would eventually become Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, and Amoco, 4 of the largest energy companies on Earth. The public celebrated, Wall Street seized on the news, and sent the stock prices of every successor company sharply upward. Within a year, the combined market value of the 34 successor companies was more than twice Standard Oil's value before the breakup. The government had broken the monopoly and, in doing so, made its founder vastly richer than he had been the day before. Now the answer to the question from the beginning, who actually owned Standard Oil when the government broke it up? Rockefeller owned 26% of every share across all 34 successor companies. By 1913, just 2 years after the breakup, Rockefeller's personal fortune had grown to approximately $900 million. In 2023 dollars, that figure exceeded $29 billion, but even that comparison understates it, because Rockefeller represented a larger share of the entire American economy than any individual has since. The man who built the first great American monopoly walked away from its dismantling richer than when it stood. He spent the rest of his life giving it away, donating over $530 million before his death in 1937, founding the University of Chicago and what became Rockefeller University, the Sherman Antitrust Act. Rockefeller forced into relevance is still the foundation of every monopoly prosecution filed in the United States. Every time a government regulator files an antitrust case against a technology giant today, they are using the legal framework Standard Oil made necessary. The boy who recorded every penny in a red ledger at 16 had, by 72, rearranged the legal architecture of American capitalism itself. Not because someone stopped him, but because no one could until they invented a new law specifically to do it.